Happy Sunday evening, everybody. Welcome, finally, at last, to LSL College Basketball's 2034 March Madness Selection Sunday. Finally, at last. It took a while, as always, but with the action that we had this season, just leading up week by week, how we went along with this season, in a way, it felt like a breeze, and now we're just here, ready to get things going to see who is in this field of 68. As you can see on the screen right there, the goal is to make it to Atlanta this year, and that's where the Final Four will be. It'll be in the Mercedes-Benz Dome. I am your main host of the show, Commissioner Daniel, here with a couple of others. To my left is one of the LSL wrestling commissioners, specifically the LCW commissioner, Franks. And then, on the right, I have with me the LWA commissioner and LSW commissioner, Mr. Pike. Fellas, I'm super excited to be here with you two. This has been an absolutely fun season. What do we expect to see going forward as we get to see these regions be unveiled?
Well, in my honest opinion, what we're looking to see is absolute chaos. I'm extremely excited, not only because the Final Four happens to be in me and Pike's hometown, or at least hometown in consideration of things here in ATL, Hot Atlanta, baby. You know we love our basketball down here, but it's going to be absolute chaos the entire tournament. We called a bunch of games last year, including a last-minute buzzer beater that was absolutely phenomenal. And in all talks from what we've been hearing, this tournament could be much better than last year's, and last year's was a hoot. So if this has the opportunity to be much better, I am ecstatic to see what these regions and what this tournament folds out to be and what it could look like by the end of the night.
Absolutely. And Commissioner Pike, what are your thoughts?
Well, just the conferences in general have definitely been switched around and swapped from time to time. Of course, there's been a lot of mix arounds, and definitely new teams stepping up and new teams and old teams stepping down, especially with how last season went. And so this year, though, is going to be very, very different. We're going to see a lot of new teams, hopefully, and we'll definitely get to see some familiar faces looking for the same goal that they tried to get last season.
Absolutely the case. And I am just absolutely excited to be here with everybody. And oh my gosh. It's like we didn't think that this day would come, but here we are. And I'm so happy to be with everybody. Once again, the crew is here with me, Franks, and Pike on tonight's selection show. Welcome, everybody. I hope you guys have grabbed some popcorn, found a nice, comfortable seat. Get comfortable. We're gonna be in for a good time. Not super long, but long enough as we get to not just reveal all of these regions and reveal where all of these teams go, reveal who has made it in, but then we also get to kind of look at it from just a glimpse after we get to see each region. So this will be a fun one, and I'm just ready to get this thing going.
Don't forget to press down once, by the way, for something.
Sorry, what was that?
Press down under your keyboard or something.
Press down on
Push
my
the
keyboard.
down button. Push down on the.
There
you go.
Yes, okay, there we go. And yep, there we go. Those are our names, and below are our Instagram handles. Make sure to go follow us. I think we could get a plug for your commissioner account, Mr. Franks.
Yeah, go check us out. You can follow me on a few places. You can follow me at legends.hsfb. You could also check us out lsl.lcw as a few places to check us out. A lot of big content coming. Be sure check out both Daniel and Pike's Instagram account. 2 huge leagues from LSL that has been kicking off. Of course, we're talking about CBB tonight, but LSL Wrestling coming up with a bunch of great content going forward. Going to be cross-branding with a bunch of other wrestling sim leagues, and we are almost on the pathway to Final Destiny, starting with Bound for Destiny in just about a month and a half.
Absolutely. Yep. And I guess if you want to say something more about that real quick, Commissioner Pike, you have the floor.
Well, I just want to say tomorrow night we're going to have a show here on my Twitch, which is at Vulcan Husky, and of course, we have a YouTube channel. LSL Wrestling has a YouTube channel now that's been getting daily uploads, and we have just uploaded 2 more VODs from our both me and Josh's shows. Thank you for the plug-in, by the way. And so, yeah, I'll be releasing more videos tonight, making sure that everything goes well, and hopefully soon we just get to see more faces.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
also, go ahead.
Definitely. And I'm just going to go ahead while we're out here in chat. Sorry to cut you off. While we're out here in chat, I just want to go ahead and plug our media pages real quick down here on the bottom. You're getting the links to the Twitch, to the Instagram as well. I'm just going to go ahead and put them all out there in chat. So if you haven't already, go ahead, drop a follow, give a follow, and shout out LSL as much as you can. Let your friends and family know what we have going on. Definitely a lot of fun content heading your way here soon.
Absolutely. Thank you, everybody, and thank you, you two, for providing all of these updates and especially promoting us and everybody else that helps make LSL so great and so special. And yes, absolutely, we would love and appreciate for others to come and join the family. We got a lot of great stuff going on here. But speaking of great stuff, I think it's time we get to the good stuff with the bracket reveal. And we are going to be starting off with the West region. That is going to be home to the number 1 overall seed in this tournament. And it is none other, than the Marquette Golden Eagles, who went 32-0 this season. Perfect, absolute perfection. One of the most, if not the most dominant team in the entire landscape. And of course, they capped off their season before this by taking down Creighton in the Big East Championship game. Did the committee make the right call here?
I certainly think they have, and I mean, we've seen, even as last year, if we're talking about precedent, even seeing last year, Marquette was, building. This year, they looked unbelievable, and they remind me of a better version of the Tennessee team we saw last year that went all the way. Marquette definitely going to be a threat here in the West region, definitely deserve the 1 seed, and I'm honestly excited to see what they could do in the tournament. There's still a lot of doubters out there. I don't get why. I honestly don't see what a lot of people are seeing. Marquette looks like a very well put together team and rightfully deserve the position they're in.
Absolutely. And any comments from you, Commissioner Pike?
Well, I mean, the thing is, though, is this team went 32-0, just like it says in the overall, but this team had to compete with some of the best, especially since the fact that the Big East was not an easy conference this year. Definitely 6 teams that really stand out and basically gave this entire conference a big challenge. But it was Marquette who stayed out tall. It was Marquette who stayed out as the best out of all of the Big East. So, yeah, absolutely deserve this spot, especially for how strength of the about their strength of conference, which was what the key factor, I believe, was the reason why they were the number 1 team.
Absolutely, and let's just get down to revealing their region. So as you see, they are number 1 overall, number 1 in the West. But who will their first game be in the tournament? Well, it will be either Lafayette, the Patriot League representative, or Chattanooga from the SoCon. A very interesting 2 right there that have made the big dance. Of course, they'll have to play for their spot against Marquette. But we move on down to the 8th spot right here. It is the Boilermakers of Purdue representing the Big Ten, a 22-8 season in Coach Ederson's first season under the helm after he left St. Mary's. But they will be playing Virginia Tech at 22-9. They take the 9th spot. and they represent the ACC, a very dynamic matchup there between the Big Ten and the ACC. We have seen that multiple times already in non-conference play, of course, because of the Big Ten ACC Challenge. Moving on down to the 5 slot, though, it is going to be Boise State from the Mountain West. The regular season Mountain West champions fell to San Diego State in the Mountain West championship game in their conference tournament. 29-3. This bunch is electric. Coach Jackson already making waves as he made his introduction season count. But they will be playing Bradley, the Missouri Valley Conference representative. They are 28-4, and partners. This is where we get to this point. Usually you look at the 5 and 12s, 6 and 11s, and you think, could this be an upset? What are we thinking about this?
Well, right now, what I'm looking at right now is, of course, you already mentioned about a team that has been hot, a team that, had high hopes coming into the season and really rose to the challenge. If there's anybody so far after who we've revealed that could be a team that could pull off an upset later in this round or whatnot, I'm looking at Virginia Tech, even though that's an 8-9 matchup. Virginia Tech's very good, but most of all, Boise State could be a team that could shock Marquette later down. If Marquette comes in that game slumped and comes in cocky, they come in basically saying, okay, we're just got a free pass all the way to the Final Four. Boise State and those Broncos could really pose a significant challenge when it comes to Marquette versus Boise State if we get that matchup later down the road.
Absolutely, that could happen. But moving on down to the 4 seed, it is Northwestern, a surprising 25-6 season, finishing 3rd in the Big Ten. This is a team that lost their best player, Wade Jackson, in the due to the transfer portal the previous offseason, and they stepped it up and performed the big time, surprising a lot of people in the country, a lot of pundits, a lot of experts. But they have the pleasure of facing SIUE, who's 29-3, representing the Ohio Valley Conference. They make their return after missing the dance last year due to SEMO's appearance. And they're here at the 13 line, a very dangerous team. They have proven to be a very dangerous Cinderella when they knocked off Purdue as a 5 seed 2 dances ago. Moving on down to Lower Concord, we got Providence here at 24-7, another Big East team. They've taken up the 6 seed, and they will have to play the Ramblers of Loyola Chicago at 31-1 at the 11th spot. Now, a lot of people will see this record, they'll see the seed line, and they'll be confused. Why is a 31-1 team at the 11th spot? Commissioner Pike, what have you heard about this?
Well, I mean, the 2 biggest factors that they had to go through was the fact that mostly it's their strength of schedule. That was the main thing that keeping them from higher than a 10 seed. And mostly because of strength of conference, too. Loyola Chicago, even though they had a really good record of 31-1, their strength of conference was just not at all of what they wanted to be, as they're only here at the 11th seed.
Absolutely, agreed on that. And the previous season, they were 28-4 and were a 10 seed. They just had a little bit of a better resume then. All of their wins just have not been proven teams. None of them are in the tournament, so we will see what they do against Providence. Moving on down to the 3 line, we got the Big 12 tournament champs, Rock Chalk Jayhawk. It's Kansas, who beat West Virginia in the finals to rise up from basically a projected last spot in the 4 seed group to seemingly the best 3 seed, and well deserved for the Jayhawks, as Coach Laws is making his last hurrah here as the head coach of Kansas. But they will first have to face the Horizon League champs, Cleveland State, at 24-7, a dangerous group indeed, led by Tristan Anaruna, who can really make some noise. Moving on down to the 7 line, we have the Houston Cougars, the American outright champs, at 29-4, a little bit lower than last year when they were a 5 seed, but they will have to go up against a team that they're very well familiar with. And I'm talking about in this setting, it's going to be Kansas State at 21-10, representing the Big 12. If you remember, these 2 teams faced off in the round of 32 last season in the region that had Alabama in it. But moving on down to the 2 seed line, it is Penn State, 28-4, the Nittany Lions representing the Big Ten. They fell to the University of Michigan in the Big Ten championship game. But what a first season this has been for Coach Reeves and company. But my goodness, it could all come to a front if they are not careful. Because at the 15 line, got none other than Oral Roberts. The Summit League representatives at 23-9. This could be a dangerous matchup. But if we go and look at just the entire layout overall, the West region, I mean, I'll start with you, Commissioner Franks. What stands out to you the most?
For me, in my honest opinion, Loyola Chicago is a team that I think, even though despite their strength of schedule, could be a team that can make waves, especially against Providence if caught off guard. I also like the matchup, like you kept mentioning, Penn State or Roberts going to be a matchup to keep an eye out for. But my team that I think could be a dark horse to run through this entire thing, even though I wouldn't consider a 5-seed a dark horse, Boise State have been proving doubters wrong all year, and they get another chance to do it this year. They're on the toughest side of this West region bracket with Marquette up there, but if there's a team that, can make waves in this March Madness tournament, it's going to be Boise State in this selection.
I definitely agree with that take. And Commissioner Pike, what are your thoughts on what we see here?
Well, actually, I think the interesting matchup we actually see out of this is going to be Houston versus Kansas State. Of course, this is a rematch from last year, and I believe that one of these teams, even though they have both seemed to have that strength, Kansas State, though, is returning to this bracket after coming off a Final Four appearance last season. But this season, it seems kind of different, though. Houston does have that energy where they want to try and get further than they did in the tournament previous. And of course, winning the American, giving that chance to become the 7th seed. But I would be careful, though. Those two teams could be the upsetting factor if Penn State gets by Oral Roberts. One of those two teams could become the upset for Penn State. But another game I want to look at, though, is Purdue, Virginia Tech. Coach Eddie versus Coach Akbar, and a really good matchup in the first round. And it's something that, Purdue, they have not made the tournament in a while. This is a good return to their form. Virginia Tech, though, they're looking to get past the first round again. Or did they make it last year? Or did they get past the first round last year?
Which team are we talking about?
Virginia Tech. Did they get past the first round last year?
Well, they had to play into the round of 64 where they beat the crap out of George Mason, yes, but then they actually lost in the round of 64 to that 7th seed right there, Houston.
Okay, well, yes, I remember that now. But again, good return to form for Virginia Tech. I think this is a good chance for Virginia Tech to make it to the round of 32. And yes, I know it's going to be possible against Marquette, but it is a good stand of form for Virginia Tech, especially from last season.
I absolutely agree. And with that said, that is your West region right there. Folks, if you want to make your predictions in the comments in terms of who do you think will make the Final Four from this region, go right ahead. Do it right now, because we will now be diving into the next region, which is the South region. It is the home of the second best 1 seed in this tournament. Well, we started off with Marquette, that's 32-0. Well, how about we go back to back with the undefeateds? War Eagle, Auburn, 32-0 overall, undefeated in SEC play. SEC champs with the dub over Ole Miss. That is your South Region 1 seed. This has been an incredible turnaround season for Coach Frost in his second year with Auburn, going from a 7 seed, losing to Kansas and a nail biter in the round of 32 the previous year, and now they're looking like a legitimate national champion threat right here. And guys, what do we think about Auburn?
Well, I mean, the thing is, though, Auburn had to go against Ole Miss in the ACC championship after Ole Miss defeated Tennessee, which is still kind of a shocker to think that Tennessee would not be back, especially with the returning talent they had. But Auburn, though, oh boy, 19-0 in the SEC. The SEC, though, did not look as strong as most people would think they would, especially with all the transfers and, of course, the leaving of Alabama's coach Gillian over to Oklahoma. But this was still a difficult conference to win in, especially going undefeated like Auburn did. But a good job by Coach Frost and a good job by the Tigers, and they rightfully deserve this second overall seeding.
Absolutely. They have done very well for themselves in this case. Franks, do you have any thoughts about these Auburn Tigers?
To be honest, this is a team that, I really look at, and a lot of people are going to question, if the records were the same, why wasn't Auburn more highly touted for that the number one overall seed in the conference as far as, West region? Why were they not put there? Why were they not considered for over Marquette? But here's the thing. Is when it comes to Auburn in this position, I honestly see Auburn as, a team that could go all the way. I think we're all in agreement on that. The one setback that I think we have, and Pike kind of hit on it a little bit, is how the SEC seemed to take a slight step back this year. Tennessee did not look like the same team despite returning a lot of talent. And overall, the SEC, like mentioned before, it seemed like they just weren't on the same level as last year. Still good, but I think that is what kind of led into the decision about Auburn in this scenario, in this spot. But still, this could be a team that's dangerous and could end up being the national championships when it's all or being the national champions when it's all said and done.
Absolutely, they have that ability to do so. They have cleaned house basically this entire season, and now it'll all come to a head. Who will be their first test of March Madness? Well, it'll be either Grand Canyon, once again representing the WAC conference, versus Bellarmine. Bellarmine making a surprise appearance from the ASUN. Absolutely incredible. Of course, Grand Canyon, we remember this team to have been an upset favorite in the previous tournament. They lost quite a bit of talent from last season, and they regressed, but they have still found their way back. And of course, Bellarmine, they're playing with house money at this point. But we're going to the 8 seed line, and it is the Ohio State Buckeyes at 21-10. Hurt me to say that as a Michigan fan, but whatever. But they are well deserved here. A late surge by the Buckeyes in a very tough Big Ten conference. They deserve that 8 spot, but who will they face at the 9 seed? It is going to be the Lobos of New Mexico, a 27-5 ball club who knows a lot about success, and this could be a tough matchup for the Buckeyes. But of course, New Mexico may have not seen a team like Ohio State quite yet, a team that has been extremely resilient this season. But moving on down to the 5 line, we've got the Blue Devils of Duke at 25-6. Semifinalists in the ACC tournament, finished 3rd in the conference. Not too bad at all. Usually, we expect more of Duke, but this is still a solid season for the Blue Devils. But at the 12 line, oh boy, they got to play Iona, who is 30-2. Oh my gosh, we're just going to save our thoughts potentially for what this could be once we look over the entire bracket, because oh my gosh, I think we got a lot of thoughts about this one. This about to be a dynamic matchup right here. But we move on down to the 4 seed line, and we got Spartans of Michigan State from East Lansing at 25-7. They dropped off just a little bit. They were a 1 seed the previous tournament, if we remember that. But they're still a very strong team led by Jalen Carter and Nicola Elias. This is a team that could definitely do some damage. Usually, they are the teams to look out for in this part of the year. But of course, they will have to first go through McNeese State at 29-3. Back-to-back, unbelievable Cinderella-type teams here at the 12 and 13 line. And again, I just can't wait to hear your two's thoughts on these two teams, maybe even others, as we go down to the lower quadrant, the 6th seed of the South region. It is going to be the Pokes. Oklahoma State, what an improvement from last year. They were an 11 seed the previous season, but now they're 25-6 semifinalists in the Big 12, losing to Kansas. But they look to be poised to potentially make a deep run. This is a squad that could definitely do it. But who do they have to go through first? Well, we got a rematch of last season, but the seed lines are flipped. It is Virginia. At 20-11, they sneak in after a shaky season, but that resume actually looked pretty good to the committee, much so that they avoided the play-in spot. But moving on down to the 3 seed line, it is Gonzaga. But at 33-0, Gonzaga's at the 3 line. We're going to have to hear more about this as we go forward. But they're going to have to face at the 14 seed line. Ball State is back. Ball State, along with Iona and McNeese State, are back. And this will be an interesting matchup to see as they are the MAC representatives. And at the 7 seed line, you've got Wake Forest at 22-9. The Demon Deacons, once again, doing just enough to get themselves a single-digit seed. But we saw what they did with that last season in Coach McQueen's first go in March Madness. They made the Elite Eight. So don't sleep on this team. But they will first have to go up against Cincinnati from the American, the runner-ups of that conference at 29-3. Coach Sutsy looking to do a lot better than being the victim of a buzzer beater in March. But going on down to the 2 seed line to wrap up this region, we got Creighton, the Big East runner-ups led by Coach Zelikov and company at 30-3. This team is absolutely dynamic. It is just unfortunate that they could not take down Marquette at any point in the season. Otherwise, they were pretty stellar. And at the last spot in this region, at the 15 line, it is Hawaii of the Big West. They are back after missing the tournament last season, representing the Big West. And this is a fun-looking region as we get to look at it one more time. Fellas, now let's unveil our thoughts. There's a lot to unpack here. Commissioner Pike, what you got?
Well, I mean, the first question is probably to everybody in the chat right now is, why is Gonzaga a 3 seed? Well, I'll explain why. The West Coast Conference just did not have the strength that you would think they would have, so their strength of conference record for Gonzaga was just not enough to put them as a 2 seed. Plus with the fact that, well, Notre Dame didn't win the ACC, another team did, which we'll probably get down the line sooner or later, is what mostly bumped them from a 2 seed to a 3 seed, while their 2 seeds remain at to where they were. So just it's unfortunate luck for Gonzaga and of course the West Coast Conference, but it really is how they are. The Gonzaga will stay at 3 seed, but I think this is actually a reasonable place to put them, especially as a second best.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that, but Commissioner Franks, what do you got?
I'm about to throw a hot take out here that this whole chat might lose their heads for. When we talk about all the matchups we're looking at right here, up and down 110%, if you're putting your Vegas bets on the line, I just want to go ahead and put this out. The only 2 higher seeded teams making it out of the round of 64 is the number 1 and number 2 seed. Everything else, I'm calling the upset right now.
It could very well happen. It could very well happen. Iona's a dangerous team at 30-2. They've returned once again, this time with that pedigree, with that experience of playing in March the season before. Same said with McNeese State. Same said with Ball State as well. There could be a lot of chaos to unfold here. And maybe even Virginia somehow gets their get back on Oklahoma State as the 11 seed upsetting 6. Because last season, like I said, these 2 teams faced basically in the same spot. It's just that, okay, State was the 11, Virginia was the 6, and the Pokes were the 1 to upset Virginia in that spot. And so it'll be interesting to see what happens now in this tournament. But I mean, this whole region right here is just nuts. I really don't know what to predict here, and I think a lot of you guys will have trouble too. But still, give it a shot right now. Give it a shot. See what I want to see what you guys are thinking for sure. So is the committee Big East biased? Well, I guess we'll find out. But let's just put it this way: the Big East was top heavy, but they had a great showing. They had a great showing this season, and they had some of the best teams in the entire country. They proved their worth. That's all I'll say about that. But moving on to the next region, we are going to the Midwest region, the home of the number 3 1 seed. Hail to the victors! The Michigan Wolverines are back as a 1 seed back-to-back seasons, but now under new leadership in Coach Provo, who took over for the Wolverines once Coach Rodriguez retired, leaving Colorado for Ann Arbor, his childhood dream, leading them to a 31-2 overall record with a Big Ten championship win over Penn State. Fellas, your thoughts on the Maize and Blue?
Well, I mean, they did what they needed to do. They played against a really tough Big 10 Big Ten Conference. And people would almost argue and say, well, if the Big Ten was really that strong, why are they not over the SEC? Well, this is why. Their 2 losses came early and late in the season. And of course, a really bad loss to Ohio State really prevented them from being a number 2 overall seed and the number 1 seed. But the Michigan Wolverines still bounced back, won the Big Ten championship game against Penn State, and consider themselves being the number 1 seed. I'd say this is a blessing in disguise with what region they may have coming up.
Definitely agree. I definitely agree with that, and also it would have been tough to have a discussion over undefeated Auburn and Marquette as they finished undefeated, even with just 1 loss. But Franks, what are your thoughts on the Wolverines?
I think this is going to be a team that, honestly, and I hate to say it, Daniel, you might kill me. You might kill me in all honesty. This is one of the first teams that, on paper they look great, but in all honesty, this is a team I see getting upset, and I hate to say it. I hate to say it because don't get me wrong, I love Michigan. I love the program in itself. I want them to succeed because just how amazing this team has been over the past few years. But overall, when I look at them, I see some inconsistencies in their game that you just can't afford when it comes to getting into the tournament. Even though they're the number 1 seed, this could be a team that if they have one minor slip up, it could cost them their season. But still, congratulations once again. Getting the 1 seed definitely deserved. It's just they're going to have to be more consistent. Too many close games that shouldn't have been that way, in my opinion.
Hold it right there because I want to make a counter opinion.
Okay, go ahead.
Now, remember last season when Michigan made it to the number 1 seed and they got upset by who again? Colorado. Who's the coach now at Michigan? The same guy who beat Michigan the previous season. The guy who was there at Colorado, Coach Provo. Now listen here. Provo got to the Elite 8. He lost to Marquette. This is a whole different team when it comes to Michigan. They have created this great chemistry with the players that were at Colorado, with the players that are already at Michigan. I feel like this has been a mix between both good and bad. But at the same time, though, Michigan, they had to go through a whole new chemistry with a whole new coach, and they still managed to win the Big Ten championship, especially with the team they got. This is a caliber team that can easily make the Elite 8, and I still believe this is going to be one of the best teams in all 4 when it comes to the number 1 seeds.
Fair enough, and both opinions are very much so valid, and I think both are very much so true to their own separate extents. But with that being said, we have to at least see who the Wolverines will be taking on first in their March Madness run. Hopefully it is a long one for them. But at the 16 line from the SWAC conference, it is Prairie View A&M. An absolute surprise here. A 1913 ball club here somehow getting the auto bid for the SWAC. Moving on down to the 8 and 9 line at the 8 seed. In this one, you got Arizona at 23 and 8. Pac-12 representatives had themselves a pretty decent season. They were in this kind of situation before the previous dance. They were at I believe at an 8 seed, just like last season. Maybe this time around they'll be able to muster a better showing, as they lost to 19 Maryland in the round of 64 the previous year. But that is not who they will be facing this year, simply because Maryland was just not good enough. No, it'll instead be from the ACC, Florida State at 22 and 10. Not the seeding that Florida State had the previous season when they were a 7, but still a dangerous spot, especially for this kind of team. It can make a lot of noise. They have a lot of experience, and this is really their last hurrah as their main core. After this season, they are off to the LBA. Moving on down to the 5 versus 12 line, though. You've got Oregon at 25 and 6, semifinalists in the Pac-12. Another pretty good year for them, but it seems like in a sense to Coach Franks, we heard in a presser before, he felt like this was a bit of a regression year because he felt no steps were made. But at the same time, the core is built, especially for next season. Big things could happen for Oregon, even in this case still. But who will they be facing at the 12 seed line? They got to take on 30-2 Marshall, who we know exactly what they did last season.
Wow.
Oh boy.
Oh boy. If you want to say something about it now, go ahead.
Well, I don't know if you want me to say something about it, 'cause in all honesty, Lord. All right.
You got a game plan.
We're going to get to work on tape. I can tell you that. I didn't expect Marshall to be that low.
Well, they simply put, when it came to Marshall, the reason why they're this low as a 30-2 team, again, just like a lot of these other like mid-major teams, when they played teams that were tournament caliber, they didn't beat them. But at the same time, it's like, oh, it's Marshall. They did damage last season, so you should put them there, right? Well, they underwent some sort of change in the squad. It's not the same. It's not the exact same team from last season, so who knows what they'll be like? But they're still dangerous, and we will see if they're able to repeat what they did last year, and if so, oh boy. Moving on down to the 4-seed line, bring in the Rebels of Ole Miss. What a season they had in Coach Webb's inaugural season in Oxford. 27-5 record in the SEC. A very, very, very impressive showing. And they were runner-ups to Auburn in the SEC championship. But who will they have to play at the 13 line? They're going to have to play the Owls of Florida Atlantic. Also 27-5. Also another high marquee matchup that is a dangerous one for the Rebels. But moving on down to the lower half of this region, you got the UConn Huskies at the 6th seed. It's been a while since we've seen them there, but this was just a season where they just racked up just a few too many losses. They're still a great team. Just surrounding competition got the better of them more so than last year, but they're still a dangerous bunch. But that at the 11 seed line, they're going to have to play against Colorado. Oh boy, they're in Michigan's region again? You don't want to see them, Wolverines. But either way, 23-8 ball club, a little bit of a weaker season. Even though records were similar from last year, they entered this thing at 26-6. But 23-8 is still very respectable, and they're at the 11 seed. Moving on down to the 3 line, though, we have the Huskies of Washington, the Pac-12 champions. In Coach Blake's first season, he takes Washington from being away, being irrelevant from the March Madness scene for a bit too long, to now being one of the top seeds and being a threat to make the Final Four. But they will first have to face UNC Asheville, the Big South representatives, at 27-5. No easy task at all. The Bulldogs know how to game in March Madness. But moving on down to the 7 seed line, we have the Hoosiers of Indiana. Indiana is back. It has been a long time since we have seen the Hoosiers, but Coach Cale left LSU to revive this blue blood, and he has done so successfully to an extent as they enter as a 7 seed. But first, they will have to go up against Georgetown at 23-7. Big East representatives. And again, this could be a very, very interesting matchup right here between Coach Cale and Coach Stevens. But at the 2 seed line, this is where things get really, really interesting. It is Notre Dame at 28-4. The ACC regular season champs, runner-ups in the ACC tournament to North Carolina at 28-4. At the 2 seed line in Coach Pike's second season, an amazing turnaround year for the Irish. But they will first have to face off against Delaware State, the MEAC representatives, at 21-11. A very, very surprising entrant into this tournament. But with that said, fellas, as we look over the Midwest, what are our thoughts? And we'll start with you, Commissioner Pike.
Well, this is going to be an absolute gauntlet. I can only say that. Of course, with Michigan, Arizona State, Florida State being in it, it's just insane. Oregon Marshall is going to be an absolute classic of a matchup. Ole Miss, Florida Atlantic, cinema. UConn, Colorado, amazing. Washington being in there, Indiana, Georgetown, amazing. And then, of course, Notre Dame being there. Not to be biased or anything, but hell of a turnaround.
And I want to go ahead and say what a stacked a stacked region this is. I want to go ahead and say this is probably, in my opinion, call me biased if you want to, is going to be the best overall region when you talk about the collection of teams in here. And I think this is going to be one of the biggest question marks that, was put out there all season. We saw how well these teams did against in non-conference play, but the question that's going to be here, how good is the Pac-12? Because they ripped themselves apart all season long, and now they're spread out through this region. The question is who's going to come out on top? Washington, Colorado, Oregon, Arizona, all teams that I honestly think could end up flirting their way in and making their way into the semifinals, talking round of 16, round of 8 possibly, and could pose challenges to teams like Notre Dame and Michigan who look to make their way into the tournament. We're really going to see, or make their way deep into the tournament, we're really going to see how good the Pac-12 is, whether they were, extremely good or just plain lucky this year and ended up ripping themselves apart either way.
Absolutely. That is going to be a big question that needs to be answered this tournament, and it'll be very interesting to see how not just these Pac-12 teams, but the rest of the field fares. Who will make it out of the West region? And once again, for those that are here, put in your predictions. Put in those predictions for who you think will make the Final Four from this region right here, because this is a stacked one. I really don't know who to go with, even though you have Michigan and Notre Dame here that are just sitting right there. They could very well make a run. I think all of these teams are very much so capable of it. But with that said, there is one more region to unveil. There are, in this case, it seems like we haven't gotten to a certain group of playing teams yet. And we will see who those are as we get over to the East region. It is the home, and it plays host to the last number 1 seed of the entire tournament. And of course, a lot of people I think have figured it out at this point. It is the ACC tournament champions, the North Carolina Tar Heels, at 29-3 overall. They took down Notre Dame in the ACC championship game and have climbed up all the way from the 3 seed to a 1 just because of how impressive their road to get there was. And I guess, Commissioner Pike, what are your thoughts about these Tar Heels?
Well, the thing is that most people would try to think North Carolina is like, well, they have 3 losses before entering the tournament. Here's the thing, though. They split the series with Notre Dame beforehand. Notre Dame lost. Notre Dame got beat at their own home. Then North Carolina got beat at their home. So they split the series. Going into this tournament now, they had to climb through the way just by beating teams left and right. Of course, they had to beat the Blue Devils of Duke in order to make it into the ACC championship game, where again they beat Notre Dame. And with all consideration, though, going 2-1 against the technically now second best ACC team, this is what granted them the number 1 seed over West Virginia. West Virginia, though, did not win the Big 12. The North Carolina, though, they did. They win their ACC conference. So, with that being said, that's the reason why they're the number 1 seed, because of, how good the performance they were.
I absolutely agree. Commissioner Franks, what are your thoughts on North Carolina?
I honestly think that this is one of the more underrated teams. I love how this team is set up and built. And that 29-3 record will kind of fool you. I think they're better than that. I think they've improved throughout the season. And this is a team that is fairly solid. The ACC, I think, is fairly tough. And they beat a 2-seed Notre Dame that I think these two teams going at each other to throughout the ACC championship play. And like I said, North Carolina picking up the win against Notre Dame was a solid statement win for them. I mean, Notre Dame could have been right here in this spot if it was the other way around. But in all honesty, North Carolina, I think, have a chip on their shoulder and a chance to prove themselves. Even though getting the 1 seed, a lot of people were saying, okay, this is probably the worst of all of them. No, North Carolina is still here. This is the same North Carolina that we've seen for years and years and years, and this team is going to be there when it's all said and done.
Absolutely, and again, these are great notes by the both of you, and I have one even better. You know, North Carolina was so dominant this year, and it was to the point that we kind of forgot that they were missing one of, if not their best player for a good bit of time. And I am talking about a guy who a couple seasons ago won the Kareem Abdul-Jabbar Award for the top setter in the country when he was at Northwestern. I am talking about Laza Laza. The senior big man is coming back from a long injury that kept him out of action for over 2 months. And he's going to be back for North Carolina now. And they did all of this basically without him. This is absolutely impressive stuff by North Carolina, and they have just gotten stronger. So I am excited to see what they do with Laza Laza. But as I have to answer a text real quick, Commissioner Pike, do you think that with the return of Laza, do you think that North Carolina's game will be elevated, or do you think that they haven't really missed a step?
Well, I mean, the thing is, though, is that Laza Laza was definitely a big factor in last season's tournament when they made it all the way to the Elite Eight before falling to the undefeated and national championship winning Tennessee Volunteers. The thing is, though, this is a whole different ball game now, because without that Tennessee team, without the factor that Tennessee had, this North Carolina team almost seems like they can just get through this. They just have to stay focused. They have to stay concentrated. And with Laza Laza being added in, their chemistry can get back to where it was before the injury.
Absolutely. So, let's go down and see who is exactly in the Tar Heels region. Well, at the 16 line, they're going to have to first go up against Albany. And in this situation, in this universe, they are now in the NEC because of the AEC's collapse for whatever reason. Don't know why they collapsed, but they are now in the NEC. 19-13, they got the auto bid, and this could be a pretty dangerous team. But moving on down to the 8 line, they will have to play, if North Carolina makes it through Albany, they will have to play against San Diego State, the Aztecs, now the Mountain West Conference Tournament champions. This is a team that at an 8 seed last season, they were looking pretty good. But now as an 8 seed in this spot, with how they've grown, how they have just, triumphed against New Mexico and then Boise State, they're looking even more dangerous. And this is going to be absolutely fun to watch them play. But they will have to face Rutgers at the 9 seed line. 21-9, Rutgers is back in the tournament. They missed it last season. But with Coach Pons coming back, or not coming back, but basically hopping ship from St. John's to the rack, this Knights team could be a player. And they were a very good team. They gotten some good quality wins. They have shown glimpses of absolute brilliance, but it was an up and down season. They're a 9 seed, but still a spot where they can prove that they're worth more than just a 9 seed. But moving on down to the 5 seed line, we have the Gators of Florida. Coach Stanford in his second season really improved this Gators team. They were a 10 seed the previous season, but now maybe it's because of a weakened SEC, but they still took advantage and they did what they had to do. This is still a strong team. They have gotten older, wiser, better in sync. They did well in the offseason. A great spot for Florida, but they will first have to play either Oklahoma or Syracuse as the 12 seed teams that will be a part of the play-in round. And of course, there will be a lot of questions about this. Seems like very weird placement for at least one of these teams, but we will address that as we get to overlook this region at the end. But moving on down to the 4 seed line, You've got the Trojans of USC at 27-6, runner-ups in the Pac-12. And unfortunately could not follow up the success that they had in this conference the previous season, but this is still a good team. This is still a very good team, still very dangerous. Jaron Jones II, Chad Texas Jr., Emory Woods are still there. This is a team that is still very dangerous, even though in the previous season, as a 2 seed, they got upset early in the round of 32 to Wake Forest. But moving on down, they will have to play Weber State, who is back in the tournament, but has now improved at 25-6. Remember, they were a play-in team in the previous tournament, but they lost in the play-in round. They lost in the first 4 round to Campbell, I believe. Or sorry, wait, no, that wasn't Campbell. That was I'm trying to remember who the other team was. It was Campbell and North Dakota that played in the first 4. But either way, a great improvement for Weber State, who represents the Big Sky. Moving on down to the 6th seed line, we got the Hawkeyes of Iowa. And now, granted, this is a bit of a drop-off compared to what they're used to, what they have been used to for so long under Coach Zelikov and Coach Wolf's first season. But this is still a dangerous team at 24-7, who could very well make some waves. Again, this is just simply not a transition year, but it's just a year of rebuilding. They've had to remake themselves, find a new identity because of the losses that they sustained from the previous season. But who will they face? Well, it will be either Iowa State again or Missouri. Those two will have to battle it out to play for the right to play Iowa in the round of 64. So that'll be interesting to see whether we see the Cyhawk again or we get Mizzou going up against Iowa in Coach Moore's first season as the Tigers head coach. But moving on down to the 3 seed line, it is Villanova, 27-4. The Wildcats absolutely crushed it this season, improving on what they did last year, and they were a 3 seed the previous season before. Coach Creed out here is looking to do much better than being upset in the Sweet 16. It seems like it's a progression. We will see if they do better than what they did the previous season, but they will first be tested by Brown, the Ivy League champions, once again making it back to the big dance. The Bears are looking to do much better than they did last season when they got absolutely thumped by New Mexico in this same position. We will see what the Bears can do. But at the 7 seed line, we got the Badgers of Wisconsin, a 23-8 team, improved quite a bit compared to last season when they entered this tournament as an 11 seed. And we know what they did as an 11 seed last year. They upset Oklahoma, ended J.D. Avery's career as a Sooner, and almost knocked off Villanova, who was at the 3 seed at that time. They almost did it. They were very close. We'll see what they do this season. But they first have to go through Tennessee. That is right. They will have to play against the defending national champs, who are at 23-9, runner-ups. Sorry, not runner-ups, but semifinalists in the SEC. They finished second in the regular season standings for the SEC. This has just not been the season that the Volunteers have expected. But at the same time, they have done enough to get to a point where they are able to compete and are able to defend their national championship the way they'd at least want to in the worst case scenario. Well, that being said, folks, we have 2 spots left. And at the 2 seed, I think we've all figured out who it'll be. It is none other than West Virginia. Country Roads, take me home. Unfortunately, it could not take them to that 1 seed because of that loss to Kansas in the Big 12 championship game, unfortunately. But they have been a very solid season. Coach Mays has just seen his star-studded core just grow and mature before his eyes, before our eyes, before the country's eyes. And they have become one of the most dangerous teams in the entire country. The progression has been a pleasure to see unfold. But their first test of March Madness, it's at Marshall this time around, and I think they're happy about that, unfortunately. It's actually going to be William and Mary representing the Colonial. This is William and Mary's first ever March Madness appearance. I could not believe it when I first saw this, but this is their first ever March Madness tournament, and I've done a lot of yapping. Partners, as we overlook the East region once more, I start with you, Commissioner Franks. What really stands out to you?
What stands out to me is, despite how poorly this season went for them, unlike last season, Tennessee is a team to look out for, that when it comes around to the tournament, this team will turn it on. They are a team that I can honestly see going to the Final Four and being one of the lowest seeds out of this tournament to do it. Go ahead, call me crazy. I don't care how this season's went. They can turn it on and start a fire in this region. That's a team to look out for. And of course, I'm looking at what would be a good matchup in my opinion. I'd love to see it. The possibility of seeing Iowa versus Iowa State. Ultimate cinema. Give it to me. Take my paycheck. And also, you might want to send the National Guard to Norman, because I think Coach Killian is creating a fireball outside campus right now.
It's, to say the least, to be honest. Norman could be engulfed in flames at some point soon, but Commissioner Pike, what are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, you look at this. I mean, you look at this region, and I'm noticing a key match that seems almost impossible but doable. You remember what happened in the, let's say, preseason? Say the showcase.
Are we talking about that 3-7 line?
I'm talking about that 3-7 line.
I knew it.
One rivalry. I wouldn't say rivalry, but between two coaches, it has turned into a rivalry. From last season to the pre-show to the preseason showcase. Oh boy. If we see Wisconsin and Villanova meet up one more time, you know gloves are coming off in that game.
Hey, sounds to me like a WWE type of rivalry, which it is. They've already had their first meeting, their second meeting, and they've split those. But if we somehow get those teams in the Sweet 16, oh boy, that game should feel like it's got a stipulation to it, if you know what I'm saying.
That comment is wild. Anyway.
Well, all I'm saying is that it might end up on LSL Wrestling Television.
It could. We might as well get it there, because I feel like it's going to be that kind of match. But either way, fellas, everybody, that is your March Madness bracket. But before we end things, we always love to, explore not just who made it, but there are some teams that unfortunately did not make it. Who were the first four out this season? That's the biggest question. Well, let's answer that right now. You can also see the last four in, by the way, but the first four out, the first one was Kentucky of the SEC, and then followed by Texas Tech from the Big 12. And then you had Baylor following them for the Big 12, and you had Clemson kind of hanging in there from the ACC, but they just couldn't do enough, and their schedules were just not good enough. But the last four in, and again, you're looking at the Big 12, and you're wondering, why are these Big 12 teams ranked so lowly? We'll get into that in just a sec. But you have Iowa State there. You have Oklahoma, you have Syracuse, and Missouri. Those are your last four in versus the first four out. And Commissioner Pike, you got a lot of insight about why specifically these four Big 12 teams were just not rated higher, especially Iowa State and Oklahoma, which is kind of jarring. It's like Iowa State, Oklahoma, very respectable records, at least it seems. What's the scoop?
Well, I mean, the main thing is for Oklahoma is just their strength of schedule. They didn't have that many good team wins that you would mostly have when it comes to like UConn, Creighton, all these other big teams. But for Oklahoma, for having only 7 losses, they didn't play really that many good teams, especially in the non-con schedule. That was the biggest factor for it. But for Iowa State, though, it seemed like almost the exact same issue, only going 7-6 in their conference. It really just brought them down. It really just did not give them that sort of leap to where they can get higher ratings. This is the reason why that the Big 12 just was not as strong, was because they mostly it really just knocked each other left and right. I mean, you look at this, Texas Tech and Baylor finished negative in conference play. Oklahoma and Iowa State nearly finished at only 500 in conference play. So it really just shows how Big 12 really just ate each other alive, and it really affected them with how bad their strength of record is.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate because here's the thing. Usually, in like years past, the Big 12, these teams have actually had respectable non-conference records, but just for whatever reason, especially Iowa State and Oklahoma, they played teams that they really shouldn't have played in terms of like how easy those teams were, and it's unfortunate. Those coaches really couldn't control who they were going to play, but still, in those times, you have to step up and maybe punch above your weight, especially to improve that resume. They just didn't. They're still in the field, but they have to play their way into the round of 64. It's good to see Syracuse and Missouri here. It's been a while since we have seen both of these teams, by the way. A long time since we've seen Syracuse, a long time since we've seen Missouri. But unfortunately, the casualties here, Kentucky, for the first time in a while, is missing the dance. Texas Tech goes back-to-back seasons missing the tournament. Baylor at last misses the tournament, and Clemson at last misses the tournament. They had a pretty good run as well. But there's one more thing I want to look at, guys. And it's just simply put, I guess we can judge the strength of these conferences, as here are the 8 conferences with multiple March Madness bids, and of course the one that stands out the most is Big Ten, putting in Big Ten teams. But what else stands out to you guys? We'll start with Commissioner Franks on this one.
For me, it's the lack of SEC representation. I expected it to be more going into the season. I think a lot of us did. And in fact, just you notice the gap after the Big Ten and the ACC. You got 4 conferences that seem to be pretty even. Big East and Big 12 with 6, Pac-12, SEC with 5 apiece. It's going to be interesting to see how these conferences maneuver in the tournament, especially since now I guarantee a lot of these teams that are in these conferences are going to have a chip on their shoulder.
Oh, absolutely. I think that for sure. And I mean, in this case, you're going to be looking at teams like, from the SEC and the Pac-12 who feel like they were misrepresented and felt like that a couple of the other teams that they faced during the season, it felt like they may have been snubbed. I don't know if that is the case for every single coach, every single team that is in this, I guess, realm of possibility, but you have to think that it could be out there somewhere. But with that said, Commissioner Pike, we talked about in the preseason how we thought that the Big Ten and the ACC were the 2 best conferences this season based on strength, and well, would you look at that? It shows. But what else shows based on what we see?
Well, I mean, the one thing is the Big Ten really showed how good they can actually be. I mean, a lot of teams recruited pretty well. Of course, Rutgers got Pons from St. John's, which really affected the Big East kind of. But I think the biggest thing, though, is that the Big East, we didn't see much teams last season, did we?
Well, yeah, I mean, the previous season, Big East, from what I remember, it was those six teams, but then you also had St. John's that made it in. So it made it 7. Made it 7 Big East teams, so only a -1 difference there.
Yeah, also that, and just the fact that the SEC hasn't shown that their strength as well. But again, this is what we showed. This is why we showed this. Is the strength of conference really plays into effect of how these teams are ranked up. SEC may have had some of the best teams, like Auburn, for example, but the rest of the conference can still affect of where that placement could be. And for example, like Auburn shows exactly why Big Ten and SEC really got favored when it comes to the number 1 seeding, especially with North Carolina being at the 1 in ACC, and of course Michigan being at the 3 when it comes to the number 1 seeding.
Yeah, absolutely, and again, it just goes to prove what we thought initially was going to be the case this season. We saw how the Big Ten was stacking their hand. We saw how the ACC stacked their hand too. We thought maybe the ACC could do just a little bit better. We thought, but we always knew Big Ten was going to cause a lot of mayhem, and they sure did. They did a lot of beating. They did a lot of self-infliction in terms of damage, but at the same time, it seems like they only bolstered their resumes in that sense. But with that said, it's going to be very interesting to see how all of this unfolds. And fellas, I'm happy to say that the field is officially set, and I'm extremely excited for the road to Atlanta. And once again, I kind of forgot that this was here, but everybody just take a look at this beauty, this thing of beauty right here, courtesy of Commissioner Pike. This is an absolutely gorgeous layout of the entire field of 68, and just make your predictions right here. Who you think will win the national championship? If you're feeling up to that, make that prediction. Because, well, how about us three make our predictions real quick? And these aren't official, just off rip. We'll start with you, Commissioner Franks.
Why do you got to throw me under the bus?
I'm throwing all of us under the bus here, just first.
Give it to Pike, because I'm not going to embarrass myself on this one. Go ahead.
Okay, fine, Commissioner Pike. You want to make a prediction first? Go for it.
Yeah, actually, I will. Actually, So thinking about all four teams, easily Marquette's gonna be one of the teams that's gonna make Final Four, especially when they make it back to where they were previously. But I got to give the nod to Auburn as well, undefeated in the SEC, and of course being a really good team. And the reason why I believe they're going to make it is because of what they did in non-con as well. So Marquette, Auburn, definitely the 1-2. I actually believe Michigan takes the Midwest. For the East, though, it's going to be very interesting. I don't think North Carolina can do it. I honestly believe, in my opinion, I think we see West Virginia take the East.
That is a fair enough. I like it. Here's the thing. I'm going to change it up a little bit, and I'm glad that you said some of these that you said. But here's the thing. I'm going to change it up a little bit, and just hear me out. West, and I'll give you a Final Four. I'm not going to give a straight-up national champion, but I'll give you a Final Four. From the West, I got Marquette. The South, I'm sorry, Auburn, I got Creighton. The Midwest, I'm sorry, Michigan once again. I'm sorry, Notre Dame. I got Washington as my money's on to come out of the Midwest. And when we turn around and look at the East, I'm sorry to everybody else in this field. I don't know why. It's a gut feeling, but I feel like the fire is still going to be there. Tennessee's going to shock the world and come out the East, and they will be in Atlanta in the Final Four.
Wow. So you're going with Tennessee taking their national championship defense all the way to the Final Four as a 10 seed. That's a bold prediction. I can still see it happening. They have the talent. They finally put things together.
They returned a lot of the talent. What did they lose? One guy? I mean, you're telling me one guy made up their entire national championship team? No. They returning most of your starters, returning a lot of your bench. I think Tennessee, in all honesty, the fact that I think coming in at a 10 seed will be an eye-waking moment. If this 23-9 season wasn't, I feel like that'll be an eye-waking moment. And I think you're going to see that fire come out, and that monster that was Tennessee last year is going to start running through people and cashing checks on the way to Atlanta this year.
Interesting. Okay, hold on. I'll go next. I'll make at least a Final Four prediction. So I think Marquette is the best team of the bunch here, not just because of record and what they did. I think they're also built for it. They made the Final Four as a 2 seed last year, and I think that team kind of overachieved a little bit. And that's no disrespect to Marquette or what Coach Nala has done, because she has done an incredible job. And yes, I said she. This is a female coach in the men's division, and she has done an amazing job. Marquette this time just has an extremely talented team. They have upgraded from last season, as you can see. So I picked Marquette to the Final Four from the West. I think from the South, I like the Creighton shout. I just think that Auburn is well put together. I think that the Tigers are are just them. They have proven why they are undefeated, and I just see that continuing on. From the Midwest, it's a tough one because I like Washington, I like Michigan, I like Notre Dame, I like all those teams, but if there is a wild card here to make it from this region and to just completely turn things upside down, I've got a funny feeling that Florida State does it. I'm going to make a bold prediction, say Florida State makes the Final Four. There,
Wow.
I said it. And then from the East, this is another tough one. I think this is another one that can really turn heads, that can flip things upside down. But I think at the same time, getting a guy like Laza back for North Carolina, I think is the game changer. So I see North Carolina making it to the Final Four.
Not bad. Not bad. That Florida State one's going to throw me for a loop, but I got to give credit where credit's due. It's not a bad pick.
I mean, again, I think like they have the talent. They have had the talent for a while. It's just been weird to see them not be able to put it together. But usually when it comes to March Madness, Florida State just seems to play at their best. And I think this is the point where they really put it together and bring out the best out of themselves in totality. And so we'll see how that goes. We'll see how it goes. Commissioner Pike, I don't know. Did you give a Final Four prediction?
Yeah, I did. I'm thinking
That's right.
about it now. I kind of don't like what I picked.
Go ahead. Here's a free redo.
Well, here's the thing. I still have Marquette being one of the Final Four teams, especially after last season, how they retained all their talent.
Mhm.
I'm looking at the South. I would give it the Frost, but he has been always eyeing down a loss. You know the one team I feel like is going to have the fire in their belly that wants to go all the way? Give it those Duke Blue Devils.
Ow.
Okay.
I think they're pent up and ready to go after losing the semifinals to North Carolina and seeing them get the 1 seed. Yeah, they've had enough. I feel like Duke is going to somehow make this an absolutely legendary run through the South. As for the Midwest, I think, to be honest, I would say Michigan again. And you know what? I don't disagree with myself right there. I still think Provo is going to take Michigan to the Final Four. And I believe that's exactly where they're going to go. They're going to go straight to Atlanta. Now for the East, there's one coach in particular who's been wanting a bit of revenge. A bit of, a one to redeem themselves after last season. And especially one that's been almost very quiet. How about them Trojans of USC? They were very silent last season, dropping to Wake Forest. This season, however, they don't have a Wake Forest in front of them. But they will have a tough challenge when it comes to the round of 32. But I believe USC can go all the way to Atlanta.
Yeah, it seems. Yeah, and I kind of agree with you in the sense that it seems like Wake Forest is this boogeyman like figure in this tournament, specifically in the South region. I'm sure there are 3 others as we look at these regions, but I mean, yeah, the USC is there. Even though they regressed a little bit in terms of record, I still feel like the maturity factor, the chemistry factor, I think it'll still come through. So they could very well make the Elite 8 or make the Sweet 16. I just think that with North Carolina, they go at it. I would still take North Carolina on that one, but that's just me. But with that being said, everybody, if you haven't made your predictions in the comments here, why not voice it on Instagram, on Discord, wherever we have LSL on. Make those predictions, make them known, because this is going to be one heck of a tournament as we will be working towards getting to the Mercedes-Benz Dome in Atlanta for this season's Final Four. This week, the road will begin. Not sure quite yet what day specifically, but we are working on that, and once we figure out when we can begin the first 4 rounds, which, by the way, everybody, all of these games will be streamed. This is including the first 4. We have never done this before. We are going to be streaming every single March Madness game, including the first 4, for the first time in league history. So we're going to be able to enjoy this ride, no pun intended, for the Rock's sake. But we're going to be able to enjoy what is to come very soon, and we'll get to see every little piece of it unfold, take shape, and eventually turn into this beautiful picture that is March Madness. Thank you all for watching. Thank you all for tuning in to tonight's selection show. I'm extremely excited to get the things going here. Special thank you to Commissioners Pike and Franks for joining me, specifically Commissioner Pike, actually, for creating a good bit of the presentation that we have seen here, specifically the newest additions. Boy, are they amazing. And for those that do not know yet, we have done game day shows in the past for March Madness, starting in the round of 32. This time, it starts at the very beginning of this tournament. And we will get to really dissect and really dive into and really give the proper attention to every single phase, every single game. Maybe, I don't know about every single team, but we will see. This will be fun, and I can't wait to see what it brings. Gentlemen, any last words for tonight?
Well, all I can say is this is going to be an absolute show, and I cannot wait to see what 4 teams play in possibly one of the best stadiums that I've actually been in. So,
absolutely. And then Commissioner Franks, do you have anything?
I'm just excited for the ride that's gonna be happening over the next few weeks. It's gonna be a lot of fun and happy. I'm hopefully gonna be able to get to commentate a few of these with you. Definitely love being able to step in the booth with you. And just like I said, I'm hyped about what we have going on and what we could see over the next few weeks. It's definitely going to be a tournament to remember.
I absolutely believe the same as well. Everybody, thank you so much for tuning in tonight. Everything will be posted. The brackets will be posted later tonight, and everything that we saw here tonight will be posted as well. But with that said, everybody, I hope you all have a good night. Rest up. Get ready for what is to come, because the road to Atlanta will be starting soon. Have a good night and a great rest of your weekend.